The Empty Cribs on Hawthorn Lane by Unsettling Stories. The bloody pacifier I found hanging from my tree belonged to Alyssa Harris, who went missing from her crib 2 nights ago. I figured it had to have been Alyssa's when I saw it, but while I waited for the police to arrive, I realized it could have belonged to Matthew Roman, or Muhammad Ahad, or maybe even Haley Davis. Over the last 4 years, they'd all vanished. Hawthorn Lane developed quite a bit of notoriety in 2015 after Matthew and Muhammad disappeared on the same night. The Romans and the Ahads lived 4 houses apart, and as far as the detectives were able to tell, the children were abducted within minutes of each other. Both houses were securely locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. As far as I'm concerned, though, the notoriety and brief rush of attention from the national news wouldn't have happened if their disappearances hadn't been on the anniversary of the 2012 abduction of Haley Davis. Haley's case was special, if you could call it such a thing. That's because on October 1st, 2013, exactly a year after she went missing, pieces of her were found stuffed in the mailboxes of every family on the street who had or were expecting children. A swarm of investigators, both local and federal, descended on our quiet suburban lane and worked around the clock for months before eventually admitting defeat. There was simply no evidence. No fingerprints, no hair, no mysterious DNA. When the media came to town in 2015, after Matthew and Muhammad went missing, the rumors started. Rumors and threats. People from all over the country decided to get involved. They felt it was their duty. They began sending harassing letters and making threatening phone calls to the single adults who lived on Hawthorn Lane. These were people who had lived here for years, people who had grieved alongside the parents and families who'd lost their children. But that didn't matter to the crazies, who'd been thoroughly brainwashed by cable news into believing the abductor had to be someone from the neighborhood. In December of 2015, a Georgia man named Alvin Stovall drove 300 miles up the coast, parked in front of Jose Partida's house, and shot him to death when he came home from work. Alvin was certain Jose was the murderer of Haley Davis and the abductor of Matthew Roman and Muhammad Ahad. He'd heard from a cable news anchor that Jose had a criminal record. That, as well as Jose's name, was all Alvin needed to justify his action. What the anchor had neglected to mention was that Jose's record was from 1977, and it was for nothing worse than being a passenger in a stolen car. Jose did his 3 months, got out on his 22nd birthday, and had been a model citizen ever since. He was my friend. After Jose's murder, the local police were ordered to keep a tight lid on any information pertaining to the disappearances. When Alyssa Harris was reported missing 2 days ago, it was printed on page 4 of the local newspaper. And so far, there hasn't been anyone from the major media outlets poking around. I know it's only a matter of time, though. Yesterday morning, someone who looked like a reporter was tailing the police cars when they came to investigate the bloody pacifier. For the rest of the day, my phone rang and rang, but when I answered, whoever was on the other end just hung up. That alone was enough to make me worried. My name is Luis Gonsalves. I've been on Hawthorn Lane for 40 years. I've lived by myself since Robert passed away in 1999. Jose Partida was my next-door neighbor. While I appreciate the efforts of our law enforcement officials, they weren't able to stop Alvin Stovall from murdering my friend. They aren't able to stop whoever is taking the neighborhood children. I've resorted to keeping my pistol holstered to my side all day, every day, even in my house. I know that may sound paranoid, but look at it from my perspective. Someone is abducting and killing children on my street. An innocent man was gunned down because the news media has convinced a large group of people that Latinos are dangerous criminals. And yesterday morning, hanging from a small branch on a tree in my front yard was a pacifier dripping with a child's blood. I can't take my chances. All that said, there's one more thing. I'm reluctant to talk about it because it's something I saw when I was experiencing a dizzy spell from my blood pressure medication. I'd blacked out from the medication before, so this could have been nothing but a hallucination. Still, these days, with everything that's going on, I think it bears at least mentioning. I was washing up after a midnight snack. The sink is in front of a large picture window that overlooks the front yard. Since it was dark out, I couldn't see anything but the reflection of myself and the kitchen behind me. I was already feeling dizzy from my medication, but it wasn't severe enough for me to have to sit, so I kept cleaning. As I washed the last dish, the overhead light blew. The kitchen went dark. It took a moment for my eyes to acclimate, but I could now see the neighborhood outside. And there was something across the street, opening the Richter family mailbox. A wave of dizziness went through me, and I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. But I am certain, despite what I'm about to tell you, that what I saw was really there. It was a pale, nude man with freakishly long legs and even longer arms that protruded from his hips rather than his shoulders. Despite him being bent down, it was obvious he was tall enough to peer through any second-story window. He paused with the mailbox half open, then abruptly stepped away and turned around. In 2 long strides, he crossed the street into my yard. He gazed through my kitchen window with massive gray eyes, and I stared back. A toothless mouth opened, stretching wide enough to fit a basketball. I reached for my pistol. Through the glass, I could hear the sound of infants screaming from deep inside his throat. His mouth shut, then twisted into a grin. Then his long, spindly legs carried him away down the street and into the woods. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. Before you go, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank all my patrons, and a special shout out to all my patrons who donated $20 or more: Tyler Spooks, Mortem Gutierrez, Kura, and Simon Lavadier Delisle. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can follow the link in the card. But that's all for now. Until next time, stay creepy.